Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be discussing pre-halving year returns. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. We've been following year-to-date ROI for most of the year. I just think it's interesting to follow because there oftentimes is seasonality associated with Bitcoin. We have discussed many times about how in pre-halving years, we go up for half the year, we go down for half the year, both bulls and bears get sufficiently wrecked before going into the halving year. And one of the things that we've talked about as well is that while you can find similarities between 2023 and 2019, you can also find some similarities with 2015 as well. But what I thought was an interesting exercise was to sort of average the two out. And the reason for doing that is, if you look at, say, 2014 and 2018 and 2022, you'll note that 2022 sort of ended right in that average of 2014 and 2018. So it's sort of like a suggestion of, well, what if Bitcoin sort of follows the path of an average of the last two pre-halving years? And it's not going to follow it exactly. I wouldn't expect that it would. But if you do average out 2015 and 2019, you get something that looks like this. Now, you can see early on we sort of were front running it, but really ever since about, sort of in Q2, approximately Q2 or so, you can see that the paths have more or less been pretty consistent, right? The 2023 path has been fairly consistent with the year-to-date ROI average of the 2015 and 2019 pre-halving years. And so we talked about how if we do continue to follow this, then it would mean Bitcoin eventually falling back down to that $23,000 level. Now, it could, of course, go below that. We did not reach these heights up here. We could certainly go below 23K. I do think there's a good chance Bitcoin will go below 23K. But just going sort of back down to this level here would indicate a $23,000 Bitcoin or so. The reason we say that is because you can kind of see where it would put you. It would put you below this prior low that Bitcoin had a bit earlier in the year. And you might remember that low corresponded to 24 to 25K, right? So we're sort of suggesting that if we take out that low, right, then it corresponds to this level over here, which would be closer to that $23,000 level. So it's an interesting chart. I mean, you kind of see that Bitcoin hasn't really been as explosive as this average, but it has been sort of trending sort of on the the lower part of it for quite some time. If you actually zoom in here, you can see that in 2019, well, we know that in 2019 and this is the average of 2019 and 2015. But if you look at the average, you can see that that move to those lower lows actually occurred on average in September. Now, the only reason it's on average is because we saw a pretty big drop by Bitcoin in September of 2019. And we should go ahead and pull that up. If you look at it, you can see right here that Bitcoin sort of dropped that last week of 2019. Now, we have said many times, that September is often not the greatest month for Bitcoin. I do want to reiterate that, just because it's not historically the greatest month doesn't mean there will not be occasionally some green Septembers. We've seen that there have been 3 green Septembers in the past. And so it's always possible that this September ends up being green. Perhaps it'll be lucky number 7. You can see we had 6 red Septembers in a row. With that said, it is still a little premature to celebrate victory on that just yet, especially considering that in 2019, Bitcoin actually rallied up for the first several weeks. I mean, it sort of topped out early on in that rally, but if you really look at what was going on in 2019, and we were to take sort of like a date and time range here, starting from just September 1st, you'll notice that it's September 21st while I'm recording this video. Of course, it's about to be September 22nd. But you can see that over the first 21 days, right over the first 21 days, Bitcoin was up about 4%, 3 to 4% or so. And it had gone up higher than that earlier on in the month. But the issue is that it still ended up dropping a lot. So while it might have been up 4% after 21 days, we also know that Bitcoin actually closed that month red to the tune of -13 to -14%. And the reason for that is because you can see that Bitcoin had a fairly substantial drop in simply the last week of September. Bitcoin dropped approximately 20%. Now, do note that that drop also corresponded to going below the bull market support band. You could argue that we already sort of had that drop over here, right, back in August. But remember, the issue is that the S&P is continuing to drop, right? I mean, the S&P has seen a pretty big move to the downside here, and we said that this was a likely outcome for the S&P 500. Did we not? We said that normally in pre-election years, right? If you go look at year-to-date ROI for the stock market, let's go take a look at the S&P, and you look at just say 2023, and you compare that to the average of all prior pre-election years that we have data for right here. Normally, there's a correction around that August to September timeframe, and that's exactly what we saw happen this time as well, right? A seasonal correction in the pre-election year in August or September or both that knocks Bitcoin and crypto into a downtrend for the rest of the year. Now, the S&P could still theoretically go up in Q4, or it could, it could go into, we could go into a recession and it could go down. But the point is, it doesn't really matter. The point is that regardless of what the S&P does, there's a good chance that crypto, especially the altcoin market, is going to be struggling for the rest of the year, which is pretty common in pre-halving years for altcoins to really struggle, especially for the last half of it. So just be aware that this is pretty normal. Even outside of recessions or recession scares, this is what it's not that uncommon to see this type of behavior. At this point, the year-to-date ROI of the S&P is actually higher than the average of all prior pre-election years, right? I mean, on average, after 264 days, the average ROI from the yearly open for the S&P is at 1.12, and it's currently at 1.13. So it's actually slightly above. But it really goes to show that this seasonal correction that we talked about for the S&P has occurred, and we know that Bitcoin has been back testing the bull market support band, and I know a lot of people are hopeful that it'll close the month green and sort of in the bad streak. But I just want people to be aware that in September 2019 we saw something very similar where it rallied for like the first 3 weeks of the month, or maybe the first couple of weeks, and then it sort of just slowly faded. Just be aware that happened in 2019 as well, and we ended up dropping the last week of the month. So let's see what happens with Bitcoin. Normally, pre-halving years, this time is not that great, and I know that Bitcoin is still green for the month, but you know what's not green? Ethereum. Ethereum is down 3.31%. ADA is down almost 4% this month. Polkadot is down almost 6%. Solana is down 0.5%, right? Avalanche is down this month 11%. A lot of these altcoins are down this month. If you go look at Doge, it's down 3%. Look at Matic, it's down almost 5%. XRP slightly up about 0.16%. Last month it was down 27% almost. A 27% drop last month compared to say ADA last month went down 16%. Or DOT last month that went down 16%. Or Ethereum last month that went down 11%. So yes, XRP is up this month. It also took a pretty big drop last month after going up. You're basically just retracing a lot of those gains that it had after the SEC Ripple news. Litecoin is currently up slightly this month, 1.88% after dropping almost 31% last month. The list goes on and on, right? So yes, Bitcoin is slightly up right now. A lot of cryptocurrencies are actually down right now. It might actually be interesting to see what total market cap is doing. Total market cap right now is up about 0.74%. So it's barely up this month. Total 2 is actually down at negative 1.14%. Total 3 is down at, it looks like it's around what, 0.13 or so. So I mean, a lot of the market has really struggled in September. Bitcoin is holding up okay at this point, but just remember in 2019 it was the last week of September that actually caused Bitcoin to close September in the red. It wasn't because of the first 2 or 3 weeks, because the first 3 weeks of September were in 2019 we saw it go up. It sort of faded, but it was still positive up until basically that last week of September. So just be aware of that. We'll see what Bitcoin wants to do as we get into the last the last week of September, and if it follows the normal course or if it deviates and does something differently. Anyways, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.